Hi, I'm Amy Karanik. I'm in the Sculpey studios to show you the fashion icon DIY oven baked clay accessories. Sometimes when you're first starting out with clay, it can be confusing to know where to start. What kind of clay would you like to use? What do you want to make? What kind of techniques would you like to learn? We created this kit to help you get started with jewelry making so that it's easy and fun. In the kit, you get everything you need to begin clay creating. You get four bars of Primo, which is my favorite clay. White, ecru, gray granite, and graphite pearl. Just a really beautiful neutral palette. You get a clay roller for making really nice, flat, even sheets. A needle tool for piercing beads and for adding texture to flat pieces of clay. A very sharp blade for sectioning clay and for cutting straight lines. And a design template to help you cut out some really nice fashion shapes. Included in the kit is this detailed instruction booklet with step-by-step photos and tutorials to make all of the projects that you see here. You've got enough clay to complete 3 or 4 of your favorite projects. When you're all done, you add your own jewelry findings to complete your creations. Here's the projects you can make from the kit. There's bead making, which shows you how to make different sizes, shapes, and textures of beads. This is the popular Terrazzo pattern that we've turned into earrings. You learn Mokume gane, which looks so complicated but is really beautiful and simple. Here's some marbled earrings that we used a couple different marbling techniques to achieve. This ring accessory was made by twisting and marbling scraps of clay. The hexagon-shaped earrings show you both how to marble and how to texture clay. The bullseye cane necklace shows you how to make a simple bullseye and then incorporate that into a simple pendant. And finally, the mirror image technique was used here to make this bracelet that looks really complex, but it's actually quite simple. We would love to see what you make from the kit, so if you post to social media, please use the hashtag Sculpey so that we can find you and see what you've made. First, we're going to take a look at making a couple different projects that are in the booklet, and this one is the Mokume gane pendant. So I want to take you through the step-by-step instructions that you need to make this piece. Also, I want you to know that in the booklet, there is just great step-by-step photos. There's a little supply list for each project. There's even instructions on how to finish it. So this is a super good reference tool that you'll want to refer to while you're making your projects. For this project, I'm going to use all 4 colors, and I just wanted to show you how little bit of clay I used for this one. So this is what I call a 1/16 of the bar. So if you envision this, divided into 4 pieces and then divided each of those into 4, that's all the clay you need to make this really beautiful little pendant. I already made my ecru, my gray granite, and my white. I already made those into flat little patties of clay, and I'll show you how I did that right now. This is the gray granite, and first I just start by conditioning with my fingertips, and it's nice and soft, not really difficult. You just want to condition it long enough to make sure it's really smooth and feels the same consistency throughout. And then I'm going to use my fingers to kind of push it toward more of a square shape. And really the shape that you use just needs to be about the size of your finished piece for this particular technique. Okay, so that's sort of roughly a square. And then I can use my little roller to roll it out thinner. So what I'm going for here, this is less than 1/8 inch thick. I'll show you from the edge. It's not real particular that you get this exactly the right thickness. This is a very forgiving technique, but I just want to show you as a reference, what it will look like. Okay, then we pile our colors up. I'm going to put my ecru on the bottom and then my gray granite next. And you can experiment with putting these in different order and seeing what kind of look that you get. And then I'm going to put my darkest color on top because that's just how I like to do it. I always, in Mokume gane, put my darkest color on the top. All right, now we want to roll this out flat. And it's a good idea to pick it up and turn it so that it doesn't stick to your work surface. And you can roll from both sides. And you can see I'm pulling on it with my fingertips to keep it kind of in that square shape. And what I would do is just roll this so that what we're going to do next is divide it into 4 equal pieces. And I kind of want those pieces to be about the size of our original shapes. So in my mind, I'm just thinking about dividing this into 4 pieces. And I'm going to use my really sharp straight blade to do that. Makes it so easy. And then all I do is pile these up again. I'm keeping them in the same order that I used before, always with my graphite pearl on top. That's my darkest color. And then I'm using fingertip pressure to seal all these little layers together. Make sure I'm working out any air bubbles. And then I'll use my roller again and do this process one more time. So all we're doing is creating a series of really fine layers. Every time I roll it and thin it, those little layers of color are getting thinner and more detailed. And I'll just do this exactly the way I did it before. I'm going to cut this into 4 equal pieces again. And then I'm going to pile those up again. Now this time I want to roll this little stack down to about the finished. I want to roll it down so it's a little thicker than that. Just use some fingertip pressure to seal all the layers together, like so. It can be a little thicker than my finished pendant because we're going to shave some of this top layer off, so making it a little thicker will be good. Now at this point, let's double check and make sure that the shape we're using, so I'm using the design template and I'm going to use this shape right here. That was my finished shape. Make sure that the sheet of clay is large enough to accommodate that, and I've got plenty there. So I'll just roll it down one more time. And the first thing I want to do, now that I know I have enough clay, is I want to create a pattern that goes all the way through this stack of clay. And my pattern is real simple. What I did was I used my blade and I just pushed a diamond shaped pattern into the clay by cutting all the way through. And what's happening is, as you push down with your blade, you're pulling one color layer into the next one below it. And that is what's going to give you that beautiful pattern. Then I used my needle tool and I poked holes in each of my little diamonds. We call this Mokume gane, which is a technique that comes from ancient metalworking. Mokume gane means wood grain metal. And people use this, have used it for centuries to make layers and layers of metal which have a wood grain appearance. So in oven baked clays, we've adopted this technique to our own skills and our own techniques to make really pretty patterns. Okay, I'm using my fingertips now to push this all back together, and some people call this process that I'm doing right now healing, because first we went through and we scarred the clay with a pattern, and you can see that I went all the way through with my pattern. You can see a ghosted image of my diamonds and my little dots even on the back. But now what I'm going to do is use my fingertips to push all this back together and heal it up, and you kind of see the pattern going away. It's not as distinct as it was before. And still, we got to double check that we're going to have enough clay, to use with our shape that we're going for. And we want to make sure we're going to double check the thickness again. I'm using the roller one more time to help heal all that up. Now, it's not crucial that you heal it completely. You can just go that far. Next, punch out the shape that you want to use. And at this point, you get to decide, do I want to trace around the outside of my shape, or do I want to use the inside of my shape as a guide? And I'll try to show you both of those techniques, so I just want to make sure I have enough. And I do, I have enough clay there. First I'm going to shave off the surface pattern, and I use my blade parallel to the stripes that I made, and I'm just shaving off a super thin layer of clay. And what happens then is you get this really beautiful, intricate detail from where we pushed all those patterns down into the layers beneath. And it makes it super beautiful and one of a kind. And each time you do this, you can plan it to get the kind of pattern that you want, but as you can see, it is coming out a little bit different than my original project, and that is, you know, very typical of this type of pattern. Okay, now I can use either one of these, the negative or the positive shape, to cut out my pattern. I can also decide, do I like cutting with my blade or do I like cutting with the needle? I think for this piece I'm going to use the blade because it's a really almost very straight type of shape, which lends itself well to the straight blade. And I'm just following along. I'm holding the pattern in place, the design template in place with my finger, and then I'm just cutting away the outside. Then just pop the design template shape up, and I want to reposition this so that it's oriented toward me. What I like to do next is I always use my fingertips to make really nice edges. The jewelry design templates are fantastic for giving you nice shapes, but you always want to give them a finished look by finger buffing the edges of your shape. Kind of takes away that cookie cutter look. All right, now to finish it off, we need to determine how we're going to string this into a finished pendant. And you could put one hole in the top, or the design that I made for the kit, I have 2 holes at the top. So all you need to do is use your needle tool and just line that right up there. And I poke it in and then just give it a little bit of a shake. That way I know that the hole is really nice and large enough for my jump rings. Then I'll go through and make sure the hole goes all the way through, like so. And then I like to go from the back because that tends to make the back of the hole even neater. All right, this is ready to go in the oven and to be baked to make it permanently cured. The baking instructions are in the booklet, but for Primo clay, we would go 275 in the home oven for 30 minutes per 1/4 inch of thickness. Now this is not a 1/4 inch thick, so you need to go at least 15, but you can go 30 minutes to make it really strong and durable. And then when that comes out of the oven and it's completely cool, I will show you how to assemble it with your findings. Let's assemble the pendant piece. And the great thing about being able to select your own jewelry components to finish your pieces is that the metal findings come in such a huge variety of colors of metal. And this is a dark silver metal that I'm using with a matching chain. So I already have my chain open here, and I'm going to slide the jump ring through the end of the chain like so. That way, in this design, the pendant will be held stationary on the chain. And then I'll slide the jump ring through the hole that we made earlier and just ease it around until it's all the way through. Then I'll use 2 pairs of pliers to close it. I'll rotate one away from me and one toward me, just very carefully until it closes. Now this is a super fine chain, so we need to make sure that the gap in the jump ring is completely closed. If you over rotate and then let it come back, that will create the most tension right there at the seam. And then you can just spin the seam to hide it inside the clay pendant. I already have this jump ring on the chain, and I have that strung through one of the links in the chain, and then I'll feed it through the hole with my pliers. and then pick up my second set of pliers and just close the jump ring. Close it as tightly as possible and then spin that gap so that it's inside the clay piece. Now your pendant is ready to wear and enjoy. Let's make the marble earrings. This has like 3 different little sections. We've got a 2-color marble, all 4 colors marbled, and then at the top we just used the gray granite for these little buttons. Now, marbling is such a fantastic way to use up scrap clay and to use up pre-mixed or sort of mixed clays, and I love that about marbling. But then it does come out different, you know, every single time you do it. So it's always going to come out pretty, but it's always going to come out slightly different. So let me just show you how to use your scrap clays to make marbling. First, let's make those little buttons that go at the top. And I just took another 16th bar from the gray granite. And what I'm going to do is use this circle template as a guide so that I get those little buttons exactly the same size. So from the 16th bar, I just have it really conditioned smoothly, and I'll just position the template right in front of me, and I'm pushing the clay down so that it fills up the template. And I love using the smaller circles in this way to create a little button shape. And then we can do that again for the second earring. And because I cut my little pieces of clay really similarly in size, it should make the buttons the same thickness. And then I'll remove the template, and I'll use my needle tool to pierce a hole at the bottom of each button. I just poke the needle tool in and then dance it around a little bit to make a nice even hole. Then I'll pick this up with my little blade, and I want to just examine it and make sure it's really neat and make sure that that hole is going all the way through. I'll do that with the second one too. So that's the button at the top of the earring. These pieces here are ready to go in the oven, and you just need to follow the baking instructions that are in the guide for perfect baking. Okay, next let's take a look at making this beautiful piece at the bottom. That is actually only white and only gray granite, and it makes just a really nice blend. I love using these 2 colors together. It actually looks like more colors than it really is. So just take a 16th from the bar and make sure they're nice and squishy. And then what I like to do is just kind of flatten them out with my fingertips, and then I'm going to smush these together, and then I'm going to fold them into each other like so. And I'll use my roller to smooth this out. And basically I'm just going to keep smushing these into each other until I have a blend that I really like. Now you can see that I'm always folding it off center so that it's creating really cool looking patterns. You know, they're not uniform or anything. It's just like partially mixing all around. And I just love that. It looks kind of like stone, how you get areas of solid gray and areas of solid white, and then you get those beautiful transitions between every piece. So I'm rolling this pretty thin, and I want to make sure I have enough background there to get this piece, the circle piece, cut out twice. So you can just stretch it a little bit with your fingertips. Oven baked clay is so easy to work with, so stretchy and forgiving. And then I'll punch out this little half round, half donut shape, and it looks like I'll get 2 of those perfectly. What I'm going to start with is my straight blade, and I'm going to go right across the bottom of that half donut and make a straight line. And then I'll double check to make sure I've got enough clay on the other side. And I do. Okay, at this point what you can do is you can continue to use your straight blade, or you can use your needle tool, and I like to show you how to do both. So with the needle tool you just pierce all the way into your work surface below, and then drag it right around the outside of the template for a neat cut. Then remove your scraps and just gently lift up the design template. And then we'll reposition it over here. And then I keep wiping just those little bits of clay off the tip of the needle. It kind of picks up a little bit of clay as you're cutting along. Sometimes on the ends I go back the other direction so that you don't drag clay out and overemphasize the point. Once you've played with these a little bit, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's just practicing good technique and good skills, which is what you'll learn from this kit. Now I'm just gently separating the shapes, and then I want to go back and use fingertip pressure to really smooth all the edges, making sure they're nice and neat. You don't want them to look like they were made with a cookie cutter. You want to smooth that edge and make it look really pretty and fashionable. Okay, so there's our two bottom pieces, and you really have to think ahead about the way you want to assemble things, because if you're assembling things with jump rings, you're going to need holes. So I'm going to prepare my pieces exactly to make this exact earring pattern. So I want to poke in and dance around a little bit in a little circle to make sure I have room for my jump rings later after it's baked. And then I'll just pull those up. At this point I would double check each and every hole by going all the way through, making sure you've got a nice neat hole. And these pieces are ready to bake as well. And look how pretty the back is too. So like I said before, when you're doing a marbling technique, it's going to come out different each and every time, but beautiful each and every time. Okay, so those pieces are ready to bake. Now this four-colored marbling technique at the top, this is a super great way to use up scraps. So I'll just pull in the scraps that I have from my Mokume gane pendant, and I'll pull in these scraps as well. And I'll even pull in this scrap that I had from the buttons. And so what I want to do is just mush all this together, and I want to fold it and twist it to make sure each color is represented. Like the back of this scrap has a lot more of the ecru in it, and I want to make sure that shows. And you can just ball this up with your hands. So you're going to produce scrap when you do the Terrazzo earrings and when you do the Mokume gane pendant, and this is just a really great way to use that up. So now I want to smooth this out with my roller into a little patty. Now the back is really has a lot more swirls and not so marbly, so I think I'm going to call this my front. And I like that, how it's going from kind of a broad stripe to more of a fine line over here on this side. And we're doing the half circles again, so that's going to be plenty of clay. I'll just pull this guy back in, only this time I'm not going to cut out the bottom or the opening of the donut. I'm just going to use it like it's a circle. I do need it to be in half though, because it's two semicircles to create the earrings. Make sure I've got my blade with the sharp side down. It's a good tip. All right, and while that's still in place, I'll just circle around with my needle tool to cut out the edge. I feel like I didn't go quite all the way through. There we go. And then I'll pop my template up and reposition it on the other side of my midline, and then go around this way. These templates just make it so easy for creating fashionable mix and match style shapes and pieces. So I'll pull the scrap away and then pop this off. Then I just want to orient both of these so that they're right side up facing me. Smooth the edges again. Make sure all your cut lines have a nice smooth edge. Okay, that's going to be the top of our earring, and remember those buttons that we made earlier. Let's position everything how it should look so that it's right side up to your view, and we'll put these back down here, the little marbled pieces. Like so. That way we can make sure all the holes line up for the jump rings later. So up here we're going to need another hole right at the top to hook the button to the half round. And then we're going to need holes down here along the bottom of these half rounds to connect these to the half donuts. Just make sure you have nice neat holes. Okay, all of this needs to go in your home oven following the baking instructions for Primo. And I will show you how to assemble them on a pair of earrings that I've already made. Let's assemble our baked pieces into earrings. Make sure that your baked pieces are completely cool before assembly. So I've already glued on an ear post to the back of the button, and here you want to use your favorite instant dry or silicone glue like E6000 and let that dry completely before moving on. Let's have a little tiny jump ring lesson. I like to use pliers to assemble jump rings into jewelry, and I've got the little opening at the very top so I can see it. And then I'll hold it on either side of the little opening with one pair of pliers on each side. I rotate one pair toward me and one pair away. And that is the proper way to open jump rings so that you don't stretch them out. Just opening one away, and one toward you. Then we'll thread this through the hole at the bottom of the button, and then at the top of the half round. Okay. And then grab it again with your pliers and rotate the opposite direction to close the gap. And that looks really good right there. Okay, next we will add jump rings that I've already opened to the bottom section. So I'm going from the back to the front. So I want to do the same thing with this piece. I want to go from the back of the hole to the front. That ensures that the front pattern of the earring is in line with the front pattern of this part of the earring. And grab this with pliers and twist them closed. Alright, now I just have one more jump ring, and I'll go through the back first again, and through the back of this hole. I'll grab it with my pliers to help push it through that little hole. And then grab both sides and rotate the opposite direction to close them. Then you can just spin the jump ring into place so that that seam in the jump ring is at the back of the earring. Now all you need to do is repeat that process to make your second matching earring. And you're good to go.